Hello, and welcome to Motown by the Book, a series dedicated to exploring books about Motown. My name is Sheila Spencer, General Manager of Motown Museum. Today is a very special edition of Motown by the Book because joining us are none other than the Holland brothers, Brian and Eddie. Along with Lamont Dozier, they make up the legendary Motown songwriting trio, Holland, Dozier, Holland, who defined the Motown sound in the 1960s by writing, arranging, producing dozens of the label's top hits. Now, the Holland brothers are promoting their new autobiography, and it's also on audio. Come and get these memories. The story of Holland Dozier Holland, which is now available at the Motown Museum store and our online store. So thank you, Brian and Eddie, for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for
Thank
having us.
you.
We appreciate
All right.
you. We appreciate you very much.
Thank you. So we're going to actually go ahead and get started with, Mary Wilson, who was also legendary. Can you just give us some thoughts and memories of working with her, and just what that was to work together?
Wow. Since I've just dealt with the emotional impact of her,
Devastating.
as my brother said, very devastating.
Right.
Mary was really a special individual, and what made her special is that she always kept her feet planted on the ground. She was down to earth. Most artists, when they get to a certain level, is not as down to earth as Mary. She was very down to earth. Her personality never wavered, never changed at all. She was just as friendly and bubbly as she always was when I knew her as when we were kids, really. So it's very difficult to even imagine right now of her not being here.
Yeah.
So it's a little difficult for me to express.
I remember Mary being such a charming, affable young lady. You mean if you could walk up to Mary, she'd talk to you, hold a conversation. She would never turn down. She never met a person she didn't like. You know what I mean? I loved her dearly. She was very good, very good.
But who would have known that they would have developed into who and what they are? I wouldn't have, and I'm sure that Barry wouldn't have done it either.
Yeah.
Who would have known we would have been able to write those songs on it?
Yeah.
I'm sure we didn't know because they hadn't even entered our mind at that time that we would be able to do it. So a lot of great things happen when you're dealing with a great atmosphere and you're dealing with some great people. It just seems to promote very positive feelings, that develop into positive things.
When you're talking about that inspiration and working together with other artists. So just tell me, because this book is so amazing to me, how did you get the inspiration to write your book, Come Get These Memories?
Well, it many years ago, I was at at Bishop Meredith's church, and we were I was listening to some of the recordings that he had, and he asked me, he said, Eddie, he said, did you have a book? I said, no. He said, have you written one? I said, no. He said, listen, he said, I think you should write one. He said, because if you don't write it, somebody else is, and they're going to make you sound like they want to make you sound, and they won't have all the truth and none of the corresponding information of who you are. He said, I think you should think about that. So I thought that for several years I thought about that. And finally, Shirley Washington brought up the same idea to me and started doing interviews with different people that could possibly write the book. They talk in terms of Motown like it was always there. And my mind kept going back to when I met Berry Gordy, when Brian was there, and I introduced him to Berry Gordy, and when Smokey was young and the Miracles were young and we were all together. There was no Motown.
Right.
We were just going to studios wherever we could, and we would get our records produced by Berry Gordy, you know. So eventually, some great things happened, you know. And I mean, the book explains it in very in detail, and exactly how it all really started, you know. And it's not like people think it is. They only look at the effects of after it developed, you know. So, but the beauty of it all is watching it grow and developing from just a germ of an idea, just a germ of an idea. It just took steps here, a step there, until the next thing you know, we had a studio. And like I said, it's not as simple as that. But like I said, in the book that Brian and I did, explain all of that. You know, we talked about it in detail. Because our feeling was that we wanted to take people on the same journey that we went through. We wanted them to feel what we were feeling as we were developing all of that. But whenever we looked around, it was like a miraculous situation. It was the Motown, and we would, you know, hits after hits after hits, and the company and the artists developed. It was just an amazing thing, you know. And so that's basically, you know, the backstory. But like I said, that was we wrote it as well as we could at that time in the book.
So tell me, Brian and Eddie, as songwriters, known for working together on collaborations, what was your biggest challenge in working together to write this book?
Well, listen, I just check with Edward and see, because he remembers more than I do. So I just sit back and listen and try to add on as much as I can. I don't, you know, to me, writing a book is great and letting people know exactly what happened with us. But you know what I mean? He kind of pushed me along, you know what I mean? I'm an old soul, as this.
When Brian started writing, I started learning more things about Brian, whatever was going on at Motown in his life, than I even knew before. I didn't even find out about it till he started writing the book. I really didn't, you know, because Brian took the time to write about, you know, his first wife. And how he felt, and how he was coming up with some of the song titles for me to write, which I didn't know at the time. And so I said, wow. And he told me what he was going through. He had never expressed that before. Then he started telling me how his relationship with Diana Ross, how he felt. I didn't know those things, okay? Because me, I was just a worker. I was just a worker. I would come there long enough to do my work. Well, sometimes we play a little game of cards every now and then. But I was there, you know, long enough. You know, I didn't like necessarily personalizing it, you know, the relationships. But so I learned a lot from what Brian's feelings, you know, how he felt about Diana, and I was surprised. It was interesting to me. It was really, I said, wow. So I learned a lot of those things after he started thinking about it, and one thing led to another, and you know, he started writing notes down. Brian doesn't like talking about that thing. No. You know, the fact of the matter is, to be honest, Brian does not like, he didn't really like talking about his so-called personal feelings, you know, well, not so-called, his personal feelings. Okay? He didn't like talking about it in the first place. So it was pulling teeth, and he had to catch him in the right time for him to even express it. But then after he expressed it, I would ask more questions. And then the guy that was listening to him, interviewing him at the time, would ask more questions. So one thing led to another. So he found out, he started expressing it more. But it came out very good. I was very surprised. Matter of fact, I learned a lot about my brother through us writing the book. To be honest with you.
In the introduction of your book, you talk about the collaboration with Lamont Dozier in helping define a generation, which I felt was just amazing. Can you elaborate more on that thought?
Well, I met Lamont through his deceased wife Ann, and she told me that Lamont was coming to Motown to be a songwriter and a producer, and I said, listen, I'll meet him. And so I'm down in the studio one day and he playing the piano and we had this song going on and the song was called Forever. I said, I like that song, Lamont. Let me see if I can help put something on with it to make it just a little better. But I did, and the song came out to be a great song. Matter of fact, the Marvelettes did it, and Marvin Gaye did it too. You know what I mean? So that's how I got together with Lamont, you know, and then later on, Edward and I got together about writing together. We produce some records and he'll write the lyrics, you know what I mean? So that's how HDA was formed, you know.
And were you writing some pop songs as well?
I would write anything I could, you know what I mean? I just like writing songs, you know what I mean?
But he did have Postman before that was the Holland
right,
Nose in Holland.
Right.
Yeah.
He did write that, which is a big, big record.
Yeah.
It is.
And I was shocked when he wrote it, by the honest.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even know he could do that.
Well, no. Yeah. Well, tell him what happened though when you asked about that check.
Oh, well, as I said in the book, where I was singing, really wanted to make records, figured I could make money that way. When I got my statements, I realized that the artists have to pay for all the recording costs, all the promotion costs, and this and that. And I'm looking at the bottom line, going down the bottom line, and now you only owe us Motown Records X amount of thousands of dollars. I said, what? And so Brian, all the time, he was looking at his statement. I said, Brian, you get your statement? He said, yeah. And I said, did you get a check with it? He said, well, yeah, I got a check with it. And I looked at him, I said, let me see it. So he showed me his check, and he had thousands of dollars. I said, man. And then right then I said, you know what? I am in the wrong end of this business. Right then a light went off. I said, you know what? I'm going to learn how to write songs. I had no idea about writing songs. Had no interest in writing songs. Really didn't have close to the talent to write a song. I said, I'm going to have to learn how to write songs. And that's what triggered me on.
Amazing. So in your book, you actually speak about your first big break with Motown. Was that your first big break with Motown, or was there another big break? And if so, can you expand on the details of your experience?
But the big break came, as far as I'm concerned, when I got with Brian and convinced him to let me write those lyrics. To me, that's where the big break came. Because Brian and Lamont was able to turn out melodies fast. They wrote some lyrics. Now Lamont could write lyrics, Brian could write lyrics, but it took them forever to write a lyric when they started dealing with the lyrics. But the melodies came fast, true and right, just naturally. And Brian's ear would always know what to do to this chord to make it more palatable for the song. He had an instinct for it. I did not. But I told him this: if you let me write the lyric, man, we could turn out a lot of product. And he didn't think of it. He didn't conceive of it at that time. I said, you'll be able to make X amount of dollars. He said, well, and I said, I'll be able to make X amount of dollars. So he looked at, he said, well, okay. He said, he said, how much money are you trying to make? I don't care. I think I must have came with a figure of $10,000 or something. And he said, wow. He said, well, if you can make that, he said, wow, then I can really make some money. I said, absolutely. So it just sparked along, right. And I got good. And I must admit, I got very good at writing songs, and I enjoy it. Really. But it was very, very difficult. It wasn't easy. I mean, I would spend hours and hours and piles of papers because I was learning to write as I was getting the hit records. So I had to be my own consul. I had to be able to analyze this. I had to ask myself, is it good? Is it right? And if it wasn't right, I had to figure out why. Sometimes it took me 2-3 days to studying it before I knew what was wrong with it. But fortunately for me, I was able to put it all together. Very fortunate for me.
So tell me, and this is something that is really interesting to me as well. You are known for creating the raw material, for Motown's greatest hits. Do you know about how many songs you've written in total?
You know what? Been asked that several times. I have no idea, but I know it's in several hundred. Now, some writers they say I wrote 1,000 songs. I don't think I've written 1,000, but I've written several hundred.
Wow!
And but the most important thing is because of my brother's ear and my brother's ability to pick out the best melodies and the best production for it. We didn't have to do a lot of songs to get a hit. We really didn't. We were very, very, very consistent. Matter of fact, when we didn't have a hit, we were more surprised than anything. But you know what? A lot of times when you're young, you feel, oh my God, you feel you can take on the world. And so when you're looking back, I mean, you said, wow, I must have been crazy to even think I could do that. You know what I mean? But we were actually looking. We were expecting these songs to be hits. We were expecting them to go to #1. We really were. We were just that naive and inspired by our own work. Listening to it, we were extremely critical. I must admit it. We were very, very critical. But once in a while, we would hit a song. Like this record we did on the Four Tops called "Wake Me, Shake Me." I thought it was a big record. It didn't do as well as the other records, And when we did another one on the Four Tops, "Without the One You Love, Life Is Not Worthwhile," I thought that was going to be a hit. Didn't come close to "Baby, I Need Your Lovin'." So we were very disappointed with those things, and could never figure out why they didn't work. But they were what you call a hits now. But they weren't what we call hits, because if you couldn't hit top 10 and up, we didn't think it was a hit. That's just how naive we were.
So that's what I wanted to ask you. Are there any songs that never got released that you were really attached to?
There's one song though, and the Motown could never find it. We did on Diana Ross. It was called "It's All Your Fault." And we finished it. I have never heard anything from that song since. I think we must have recorded that song. See, in other words, often we would record a song with a dummy title.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I could think of, because that song has never surfaced since we wrote it. It never surfaced to this day. And I was hoping that at Motown and finding out all the catalog and cleaning out certain catalog, especially on the Supremes, that they would run across that song, but they have not. So the only thing I can think of is that although I called "It's All Your Fault," we must have cut it on another title, but they have never found it yet.
Well, tell me, there sounds like there's so many memories that you have had. What was your most memorable experience working with Berry Gordy?
Berry Gordy functioned in a way that, and this is what made the company so great, that Berry Gordy wasn't always looking over your shoulder. He wasn't that kind of a person. He didn't necessarily tell you what to do. Berry Gordy's philosophy: hey, man, if you got talent, and your personalities of the individuals are nice. I like, because Berry Gordy only likes certain kind of people. You had to be kind of sociable, kind of, easy to get along with. Had to be, you know what I mean? He didn't like no troublemaking stuff around him, So he would sort of give you your head. And he believed if you had the talent and he opened the door, you would find your own level. And it's true. It's true. And that's exactly what we did. Once in a while, he might listen to something if he walks in the studio and say, it's okay, but blah, 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 blah. Once in a while. But if you don't change it, he don't say anything to you. If you don't change, that's up to you. He allowed the creative people to have their freedom, which is a very unique and wonderful thing. But it made the company great. It made the company great because it caused us to sharpen our ability and cause the competitiveness around us to grow stronger and stronger. And we were such a a competitive company that we were constantly competing with each other. And it's like the stronger you got and the better you got, the more competitive you became, and the more edge you became on to your product. So that people just started getting stronger and stronger and stronger because they didn't come there as no writers. They didn't necessarily write. Most of us could write a little bit, most of us, but not all of us. Okay, but we developed. We developed.
Learning on the job, as they say.
Barry had an ear. He knew exactly what he believed was a hit record and not a hit record. So that was a big guide. That was a big thing because he would listen to this record and say, yeah, this is a hit. No, that's not a hit. This is a hit. No, I don't think this is a hit. So it caused you to either have to shoot for the song that he thought was a hit because if he didn't, they weren't going to be released. So all of that growth, all of that potential, Brian said came into play. So that's what really made it grow and develop like it did, in my opinion.
What was your most memorable experience working with a Motown artist? And it can be any artist that you would like to tell us about.
Let Brian tell you because he got a different memorable artist than I do.
I do. I didn't know that. Listen, to me, Marvin Gaye was the greatest singer at Motown. Period. You know what I mean? But there was a lot of great singers at Motown, but he stood out more because he understood. His emotion showed when he sung a song. All the time, for once, he did a song called "Can I Get a Witness?" And he turned that song into a really great song. You know what I mean? And how sweet it is to be loved by you. He just turned them songs into great songs. He was a very highly talented singer. You know what I mean?
I have to agree with Brian on that. But I think my greatest development is when I started working with the Four Tops, with Levi Stubbs. I thought Levi Stubbs was the greatest singer. And Levi Stubbs was the most challenging person I had to work with. Very, very challenging because he was so talented. But the beauty of it, that when I sensed how good he was, I could write and sing those songs pretty much any way I want to, and he could take it and do wonders with it. Okay, that's what he did. When I laid those demos for him, they were good. Levi made them great.
But he had a great voice.
He made them great because he had an ability to take up-tempo songs and sing them as raw, and then he could take a ballad and make it as smooth, as romantic, and was all in his voice. He could do it with a whisper in his voice. Most singers can't do that. He could sing very low, but the sound and the feeling always came through. So he made them greater. He absolutely did. But Marvin Gaye was the easiest because Marvin Gaye would hear the song one time. I remember rehearsing with the song that Brian mentioned, "Can I Get a Witness?" And I just sing it down, and he said, "Okay, I got it." I said, "You got it?" He said, "Yeah, I got it." I didn't believe it, So I said, "Well, go ahead." And so not only did he have it, he started adding this sanctified rhythm to it that I didn't even think or feel of. In other words, he said, "Can I get a witness? I want a witness." I didn't have that kind of feeling. You know what I mean? No, I would never do that. I would sing it right on the beat. He would do that off-beat thing, and I loved it. I said, "Well, that guy, man, he just heard it. He just had an ear for music. His ear was far superior than mine. I could hear the melodies and all like that, but he heard something else." So he popped those songs out. Other singers would they had to take a lot of the time. They didn't learn them that easy. Even the better singers had trouble often singing our songs. We had to really work with them, although they were great, they turned out great, but hey.
Do they need to be trained along with your lyrics
Well,
Is that
what
a little more
they
challenging?
I would what I don't necessarily know the train, but well, maybe Levi to some degree because it wasn't his type of song. He wasn't used to singing that. But his ear was, when he heard me doing it, he could execute it. And he could do it better because his voice was stronger. He had a stronger, grittier voice if he needs to be. And he could sing it really sweet and pretty when he need to be. And he always knew when to do, when to do what. Now, a lot of people didn't realize it, but I sensed it during that time. Levi thought I was challenging him, because those songs, they would be in such keys. I could sing them in those keys I gave it. Then I can't do it now. But see, it was nothing for me to sing high C. I can sing them sing high C all day long. Okay, and Bryant was the one putting them into certain kind of keys. Levi for years thought it was me. and I and then I knew that he was kind of resenting it a little bit, would never say anything. And I remember talking to Duke. I said, Duke, Levi, you may not know this, that Levi, I said, he was kind of a little perturbed with me. He said, oh, I knew it. I said, you knew it? He said, yeah. He said, I knew it. He said, let me tell you something. He said, Levi would tell me, he said, man, I'm tired of this guy putting these songs in this high key. He said, I'm telling this high key. He don't want to put these songs in this low, make this song low. He said, I'm tired of putting these songs in this high key. And he said, Levi, he said, well, the only thing I can tell you, he said, but I tell you one thing, he sure know what he's doing though. He said he knows what he's doing. And I told Duke, I said, Duke, it was not me, it was Brian. Brian would have certain notes that he thought was better in certain keys. Or certain keys, he would figure that the melody is better. So I just happened to be able to sing those in those keys. Then I would say, and I said, so it was never me getting the key. It was Brian. So like I said, I'm sorry. I said I didn't know that. I thought it was me showing off. I said, but I wasn't.
Wow.
All right, before we close out, just one question for you. Can you provide just a brief word of inspiration? We have so many upcoming artists that look to you all as legendary, iconic. Could you just give a word of inspiration to all of that next generation that's coming up for us?
So only thing I can say is this, that what you have to do is be able to have something a little bit different, some touch of originality. That is your best bet. Because there's a lot of songs out there, a lot of singers. To me, they all mostly sound alike. A lot of writers, they sound alike to me. There are a few that are exceptionally good. A few. But they're the ones that are exceptionally good, they're exceptionally good. And that's the same as the rappers. Same thing. Same thing with any creative person. But if you can come up with something, you got to be commercial. You got to be, as they say, keep it in the pocket of what people are looking for and feeling. But if you can make it a little edgy with a little originality, you got a good shot. But the important thing, you got to keep doing what you feel, what you believe in. You got to. Because when I was coming up, nobody thought that music was any kind of a job. They thought there was a bum. Doing music, he's a bum. Doing that, he's not going to ever be nothing.
He ain't working the factory.
He can never, where does he work? Brian said, if you ain't working if you're working at 4 factories or somebody, you ain't got a job.
Yeah,
they never thought what I was doing was a job. I thought it was. Because I looked at it differently. They didn't. So when I started making money, they were all shocked. Even my neighbors when I was a kid coming up. So I took a lot of criticism. You know what I mean? Because next door to me was my relatives, my uncle, my cousins. And my uncle would say, oh, he's not going to do anything. He's going to be a mom. He don't even want to work. He does some music stuff. You know what I mean? But the funny thing, one of the things that gave me great satisfaction, when that same uncle, after I got 2 or 3 hits, came to me, said he needed money to buy a house. And he came down to my office and looked at me. He said, "Edward, can you loan me some money?" He said, I don't need but a few $100 for down payment on this house." And I looked him and all can flash through my mind is all the time through the years he would tell my cousin, "Do not play with your cousin. He's a bum. He's not going to do anything. Oh, he said he's not going to work." And so I said, he was sitting across from my office. So I just looked at him. I didn't say anything. I said, "Okay." Never got it back, but it's okay. Never got it back.
So the true word is to make sure your work is different, right?
Absolutely.
And
Gotta have a touch of originality.
Stay at it.
That's the best shot. That's the best shot. Although most of the music is really repetitive to the point that they sound a lot alike. I mean, I don't know how these copyrights, they got to be, the copyright office must be full of lawsuits. Because those songs, see, when we were coming up, everybody was writing differently. Singing different. The singers didn't sound alike. The writers didn't sound alike. They didn't write alike. They were all different. And they were all good. And they just had a knack for it. But you know what? I have to say this. I just want to say this one thing. I believe a lot of that was because the school systems were superior. See, the school systems then, they had music class. They were teaching kids music. They were teaching them how to read music.
And send them to concerts.
And they were sending them to concerts, and they were looking at it, feeling, getting experience. Then they killed all that those sessions. You know, like I said, when we were coming up, man, they had all kind of great writers, all kinds of. Even when Barry Gordy was getting hit record, there were other writers that could do. They were creative. Them people could write. They just didn't have the tenacity, and they didn't have the stick-to-itness and the discipline that Barry got. But they were creative. They were good.
Okay, Sheila, I want to say this on my last note, on my last few words.
Sure.
This is the audio from Holland Dozier Holland book. Come and get these memories.
Okay, amazing. And we're looking forward to having that.
I want you to have it. I want you to put it on the shelf.
Yes.
And sell them for us, okay?
Okay. So we have the audio that goes along with the book. It's you can find it at the Motown Museum store and also at our online store at www.motownmuseum.org. And Eddie and Brian, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today.
Looking forward to seeing you again.
I look forward to seeing you all. Don't stay away too long.
No, we won't. We'll wait till the winter kind of close, get a little warmer.
All right, I'm gonna hold you to that.
Okay. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.